Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley reporting from Washington, D.C., and it's the 19th of September, Friday afternoon here in the nation's capital. The outlook is troubled. The watchword from now until the election will be indict McCain for ISIS, or better yet, arrest McCain for ISIS. Too many people don't know how to spell indict. So arrest McCain for ISIS. Put a hashtag in front of that. Put a sharp in musical notation, a diesis. Hashtag arrest McCain for ISIS. This is now the key to the entire situation. To stop this war in the Middle East, which is now planned, obviously enough, to knock the entire war party on the defensive, to disrupt them, to harass them, to expose them, to prevent them from undertaking new warmonger lunatic actions vis-a-vis Ukraine, and also to prevent the forces of genocidal austerity from seizing control of the United States Senate. Let's focus on Senator McCain. He is the head of the Republican Party. He's their last nominee. Romney has dropped out, but McCain is there every day. He's on television all the time. And along with his amigo, Lindsey Graham, this is the voice of the war party. However, this is only the tip of the iceberg. These are now frontmen for a creeping military coup to box Obama in, feckless as he is, weak and disoriented as he is, with the likes of Valerie Jarrett advising him, to box in the feckless Obama and get a war going. And I can point out, I think, that this entire strategy is one that I denounced on this program based on an article, I believe, in the Washington Post back in the springtime, in the first week of April. John Kerry and the U.S. military are clashing on their approach to Syria's rebels. Pentagon opposes direct military intervention against Assad. And what we found out there back then was that Kerry and Samantha Power were trying to overwhelm the resistance of General Dempsey, Obama's handpicked chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Dempsey was saying no to military operations in Syria. In the past week, he says maybe. At that point, a defense official said if it weren't for the chairman Dempsey, you would be right back in Iraq or Afghanistan if it were left up to skull and bones John Kerry and or humanitarian bomber and passionaria of genocide Samantha Power. And the key word back then in April was searching for new options. Kerry has been huddling with retired generals David Petraeus, the main focus of Bonapartism in this country, David Petraeus and Jack Keane, Keane, the architects of the 2007 troop surge plan in Iraq. Those two generals have told Mr. Kerry they believe a military program to train and equip the Syrian rebels with limited strikes to weaken Assad could be effective, according to U.S. officials. Well, that is practically where we are right now. How did they grind down Dempsey? How did this machine with McCain and Graham up front, with Kerry and Samantha inside the administration, and Rice and others, and then also Petraeus and Jack Keane, General Keane, coming in from the world of the neocon think tanks, the Institute for the Study of War, the American Enterprise Institute, the Kagans, Kimberly Kagan, Kim Kagan, Frederick Kagan, and Donald Kagan, And, of course, Newland. So there is a clique. Is John McCain the front man for a coup, for a putsch? These are interesting questions. You'll remember in that movie, The 7 Days in May, there's a senator who was part of the camouflage apparatus. So here it goes. McCain and ISIS. He's the leader of the Republican Party and a former presidential candidate. And he meets with this Badri, Ibrahim Badri, also known as Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, also known as Caliph Ibrahim. Well, where do we get it? The principal source of the most recent bout, I think we can say, is my good friend Thierry Meyssan of the Voltaire Network, and his important article that appeared in the Voltaire Network on the 18th of August. On the 18th of August, it was McCain, the orchestrator of the Arab Spring, and someone who was part of that secret meeting in Cairo to launch the entire wave of destabilizations, but above all, the conductor, orchestrator of the Arab Spring, and the Caliph. And here we had that picture of the secret meeting in Idlib, Syria, back in April of 2013. John McCain with the heads of the Free Syrian Army. In the left foreground, Ibrahim Badri, that's Badri, Baghdadi, Caliph Ibrahim, same guy, and Brigadier General Salim Idris, at that point the titular head on paper of the Free Syrian Army. And if you look at this very interesting article on the Voltaire Net website by Meyssan, he's also got a wanted poster for that same guy. Badri had, as of October 2011, so years before Walnuts McCain met him, we've got Badri with a price on his head. Up to $10 million reward for Badri, and you can see it's the same guy. Don't kid me, it's the same guy meeting with McCain there in Idlib with this other gaggle of terrorists. So this has now come to the fore. As you will remember, last week, and I want to cite this so you remember where we are in the process, my particular headline last week for this broadcast: Stop GOP power grab in U.S. Senate by exposing McCain's material support for ISS cannibal caliphate. Okay? And this is now the theme that dominate up until the time of the U.S. elections, unless it's overtaken by even greater crimes. So Voltaire put this out on the 18th of August, about a month ago. This was then on the following day, the 19th of August, the pro-Democratic Party website VoteVets.org, I believe, VoteVets, they put up an interesting, VoteVets.org. They began a campaign to expose McCain and call his office and demand explanations. Why was the leader of the Republican Party and the leader in the Senate, why was he meeting with those terrorists? And we'll continue this saga. We want you to have detailed, accurate background to go after McCain. Back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Let me interrupt our analysis for action in the field. In New York City on Sunday, that is to say Sunday the 21st of September, keyed to coincide with the session of the United Nations General Assembly, there's going to be a climate march. You know, we are not interested in the climate aspect of this. However, it is a great opportunity to mobilize these people for real-world urgent events, such as avoiding World War III, avoiding fascist austerity and genocidal austerity here inside the United States. So, on Sunday morning, and we'll just have to check these the details on this in the next break, but it looks like the following. I'm assuming now that march is on the Sunday, and the idea is you want to go to New York City up on the Upper West Side, 77th Street and Central Park West. So it's north of the American Museum, Hayden Planetarium. 77th Street and Central Park West in the park, right? Not on the built up, not on the building side, but across there into the park. There is the gathering of some anti-war groups. I think Code Pink is one of them, but there are some others. We are going to gravitate towards that. The breakfast that they announce, they begin to gather at 8:30 a.m., but what you want to do for sure is to be there by 10 a.m., because they are then going to march down Central Park West towards Columbus Circle, and they are then going to merge into the larger so-called climate march. But this will be an island of anti-war, pro-peace, real-world activism in the middle of other people who are concerned with these various themes. So we want to try to reorient as many as possible towards the urgent question of avoiding World War III. You're going to find Chris Reith on the ground. Chris, a veteran organizer for the United Front Against Austerity and the Tax Wall Street Party, someone who has done yeoman service in helping Randy Credico. And will be there with a sign that says, hashtag arrest McCain for ISIS. Hashtag AARMCCAIN, the Arabic number 4, and then capital ISIS, all one word. And that's his sign. So I urge you, if you have the time and ability, print out some leaflets, make your own sign. Again, arrest McCain for ISIS. That's going to be the key to it. And use this as a sounding board, right? Connect the little wheel of our superior ideas, program, and strategy with the bigger numbers of this group, right? And give them something highly focused so that they can actually to change world history at this critical junction. So that's the 77th Street and Central Park West between 8:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. Sunday morning, and that's when they'll be gathering. So if you get a chance to go to that, we will be there. Right, the climate march. Let's see, People's Climate March, New York City. This is what it is. So, and that's on the 21st. Yes, indeed. So it is Sunday. Okay. So now back to McCain. I said this interesting photograph now for the first time labeled with the identification of one of the participants as Badri Baghdadi Caliph Ibrahim appeared on the Voltaire Network on the 18th of August. Vote Vets then got into the act with their own parallel converging campaign on the 19th of August. So 18th of August, 19th of August. And at that point, Brian Rogers, Brianrogers, Brian Rogers, McCain's flack, McCain's press secretary, publicity man, began getting demands for explanations. Why was the senator meeting with those terrorists? And, of course, the answer was, oh, this is a terrible misunderstanding. Those are the wonderful heroes of democracy from the Free Syrian Army. Well, they were quite possibly that, but many crazies wearing many hats, duplicitous, Byzantine, Levantine, easily able to to sell themselves 6 different ways within a very short period of time. And not only did he meet them, but now we have to go to a very interesting article, which I want to recommend to you. It's Got News, G-O-T-N-E-W-S, Got News, an article by Charles C. Johnson. This is from today, September 19th. Exclusive, overwhelming evidence that John McCain met with ISIS rebels. Well, again, most of this is what you see in the Voltaire Net article from 1 month earlier, but certainly tweets from Islamic terrorists and their supporters confirm that the terrorists John McCain met with partnered with ISIS. Don't believe this debunking. We'll go through the debunking in a minute. Senator McCain's spokesman, Brian Rogers, lies about the senator's ties to Syrian terrorists. McCain wanted a sleepover with the terrorists. And the source on that one is none other than Elizabeth O'Baggy. Elizabeth O'Baggy, you'll remember her. This was a year ago. Elizabeth O'Baggy was working at the Institute for the Study of War, the Kimberly Kagan monstrous think tank. Kimberly Kagan and General Jack Keane. Hey, we're seeing the same people again and again. O'Baggy worked for Kagan, and she was a colleague of General Keane, except that about a year ago, O'Baggy was exposed for having lied about her academic record. She's a fake PhD. She alleged that she was a PhD, and this was false. She had no PhD. Serious now. Speaking as a real PhD, I can tell you that this is dirty pool. So O'Baggy had to quit the Institute for the Study of War. Kimberly Kagan couldn't tolerate such a sleaze as Elizabeth O'Baggy. But then, don't worry, O'Baggy was hired by McCain. As far as I can determine with a quick search today, O'Baggy is a legislative aide to the senior senator from Arizona down to the present time. O'Baggy. And O'Baggy is the confirmation he wanted to stay over. And we're going to read you that when we come back here in just a minute on World Crisis Radio. Back to World Crisis Radio. The watchword of the hour. Arrest McCain for ISIS. Hashtag arrest McCain for ISIS. The head of the Republican Party must be arrested, indicted, and jailed for material support for terrorism. And then we'll see what the November election looks like, and we'll get to see whether the U.S. aid to the so-called moderate terrorists or democratic terrorists or pro-Western terrorists will be continued. So Elizabeth O'Baggy, fired from forced to resign from the Institute for the Study of War by Kim Kagan, now works for McCain. Let's go back then to this interesting Got News, Charles C. Johnson. Here we have an interesting tweet. It's from Brian Rogers, Communications Director, Office of Senator John McCain in the Capitol. And he's writing back to the interesting journalist, Charles C. Johnson, saying, hey there, Charles, yes, he, McCain, wanted to visit with them, the terrorists, longer, including until the next day. And that's the sleepover. Then McCain's story then begins to waffle. He says he didn't meet with terrorists, but he doesn't know who he met with. He declines to name them. And the cover story, you're going to hear this more and more, is McCain can't tell you who he met with. He, of course, supposedly knows, but he doesn't want to speak their names in public because then, oh my gosh, those wonderful Democratic guys would be targeted by the bad, mean terrorists of ISIS or maybe Al-Qaeda, Nusra, or any of the sort. So Rogers tells CNN in May, right after the trip, none of the individuals the senator planned to meet with was named Mohammed Noor or Abu Ibrahim. Sorry. We're also told here a character called Alexander Marquardt writes, McCain had small contingent of U.S. security as well as the Asafat al-Shamal Northern Storm Brigade, and he met with 5 FSA commanders and on and on. So take a look at this article, highly interesting. They attempt to conjure up some kind of a conflict. Is the Northern Storm Brigade an enemy? Well, according to Shami Witness, published here in this same article, there were claims that ISIS had been hunting the Northern Storm Brigade of the FSA, but it turns out that they fought together side by side in Menghe. Okay, so all kinds of interesting details. Are we really supposed to know that? Are we supposed to believe that McCain wanted to have a sleepover with people he didn't know? They could have been terrorists. They could have taken him hostage. Okay, now, we have an amazing mobilization of frauds here to defend McCain. It's actually remarkable. Who do we have out there defending McCain? Well, it's quite a group. It includes, and let's try to get the list because we want to give everybody their due. It includes CNN. It includes CBS. It includes the Daily Beast, the Washington Post, Salon Magazine, the Daily Caller, and on and on. They're all trying to debunk, as they say, in other words, to obscure the fact of fraternization by McCain with terrorists and material support by McCain to terrorists. Just parenthetically, now, we don't want to go through these cases because they're largely fake, but there are people in the United States now who are sitting in jail, indicted or waiting to be indicted, supposedly because they provided material support to ISIS. And we got a sting operation. We got alleged ISIS in Australia wanting to cut people's heads off. Those guys are rounded up and taken into custody. McCain is still at large. He's still at large. Now let's go through some of this. The Washington Post, I guess, leads the pack with their so-called fact-checking. The Washington Post, 4 Pinocchios for the claim that McCain met with the Islamic State. Now, the story gets complicated here because Rand Paul, the on-again, off-again anti-war libertarian, last week he was pro-war. This week he's anti-war. So we can't put our hand in the fire, of course, for little Rand Paul, right? He's flip-flopped on this issue as he flip-flopped on drones, flip-flopped on the 1964 Civil Rights Act. This guy's he's like a weather vane, tells you which way the wind is blowing in the reactionary Republican Party. But still, remember, in the Leibnizian universe, evil often does good. When evil clashes with evil, good results. This is the thing that we're dealing with here. This is in no way an endorsement of Rand Paul or even the suggestion that one can associate with Rand Paul. Quite the opposite. Don't bet anything on Rand Paul. He'll probably flip back as a result of the panorama of press nonsense that I'm going to be going through here. But the Washington Post, 4 Pinocchios for anybody who says, 4 Pinocchios in this case for Rand. In an interview with the Daily Beast, Rand said, the Daily Beast, September 16, 2014, here's the problem. Senator McCain did meet with ISIS and had his picture taken and didn't know what was happening at the time. Now, that's very charitable. He didn't know who he was meeting with. We would say he knows quite well who he's meeting with. Now, then the Washington Post purports to give the facts. They go to Muaz Mustafa, the executive director of the Syrian Emergency Task Force. God knows who they are. The Northern Storm Brigade, according to Mustafa, is bitter enemies of the ISIS and, other sort of atmospherics and so forth. And we're even reminded that Douglas MacArthur McCain, the Islamic State recruit from Minnesota, had the same name as McCain as the senator, right? But the pictures, and then we're told about vote vets and that they're also wrong. Senator McCain, well, the chairman of Vote Vets, John Saltz, has given up. He told the fact checker that he did not pose with ISIS, but he did meet with the FSA, and some of them then went on to become parts of the ISIS. I'm afraid that's not even it. He met with somebody from Al-Qaeda who had a price on his head, who was at the same time the head of ISIS, who then went on and became the caliph. Now, the other interesting one is McCain has these Freudian slips. He's done it twice. On the Sean Hannity show, September 15th, Hannity tells McCain, hey, Rand Paul is criticizing you, says the FSA does not exist. And McCain says, has Rand Paul ever been to Syria? Has he ever met with ISIS? Has he ever met with any of these people? Has he ever met with ISIS? Well, the obvious implication is McCain has met with ISIS. It's the second time. We have another broadcast with McCain where he says, Hillary, Panetta, Petraeus, everybody wanted to help ISIS, and Obama blocked it. So twice, not once, but twice, he has raved about ISIS as if he were basically reflecting that he is in close touch with ISIS. We've also just had these exchanges with Kerry at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee this past week, where McCain raves. He says, I'm in touch with them all the time. I'm in contact with those FSA people all the time. I know too many of them, John. I know them intimately. Oh, my God. He knows them intimately. We need a special prosecutor. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Okay, it's hashtag indict McCain for ISIS. I'm sorry. Arrest McCain for ISIS. Make it clear. I get down to earth. Arrest McCain for ISIS. So we've got O'Baggy. That leads to Kagan's. That leads to Keane. He's directly implicated. Petraeus and Keane were called in by Kerry and Samantha to find a way to wage war in Syria, and now they found it. The training has been voted for, and the airstrikes is what various people are pressing for, and we've got to stop it. I urge you to mobilize with us on this. This will be the principal issue of the November elections. This is it. And remember, they were able to grind down Dempsey and to some extent Hagel. Dempsey flipped this week. And Kerry also points to another character they brought in, General Allen. Remember him? Now remember, because this all goes back to the attempted putsch by Petraeus under the color of the November 2012 election. Benghazi was the centerpiece of it. And Petraeus was then forced out under the color of a sex scandal with Broadwell, but this was a putsch, and forced out with him, also under the cover of a quasi-sex scandal, was General Allen, who was hobnobbing with Jill Kelly, the rival of Broadwell, two Matahari operatives, it looks like. So Allen, though, was supposed to take over as NATO commander. He was forced out. He said his wife was sick, but he was forced out. And Allen is now back as the principal advisor to Kerry. If you listen to those hearings, Kerry kept saying, my guide, my man, my guru is General Allen. So another warmonger has been brought in. Look at this pattern. Okay, so Washington Post claims that they know who McCain met with, 4 Pinocchios for Rand. Jake Tapper on CNN, defend McCain against false charges from Rand Paul. Well, again, sorry, no endorsement of Rand Paul, but the charges are true. CBS claims that the charges against McCain have already been debunked. Yeah, they've been debunked, as for Tapper, by the Free Syrian Army itself. Tapper comes on and says, yeah, we called the Free Syrian Army, and we said to them, are there any Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorists in that picture? And Free Syrian Army told us, not a one. Those are our wonderful heroes of democracy from the Northern Storm Brigade. Okay, said Jake. Okay, said CBS. So let's get serious. McCain raves to Kerry, I know too many of them, John. I'm in contact with them all the time. I know them intimately. Yikes. Better to go with Senator Manchin, who says it is insanity to fund the rebels. Insanity. Now, he said he would shut down the government. I guess he was surrounded and crushed, or he otherwise gave up. I would also cite you Colonel Wilkerson, the former aide to Colin Powell, who pointed out that the policy of arming the Syrian rebels is insanity writ large. This stuff is everywhere. We need a powerful force to intervene with clarity to punch through, arrest McCain for ISIS. McCain asks Hannity, has Rand Paul ever been to Syria? Has he ever met with ISIS? Now remember, Voltaire Network, Maison, that's the gold standard. That has the best sources in the region. The Daily Beast, Rand Paul eats up the hoax that McCain met ISIS. Sorry, Tina. Sorry, Daily Beast. He did meet ISIS. And they even have an interview with Rand. Salon Magazine, Amateur Hour by Rand. Sorry, the charges are true. Hot Air says it's a stem winder. The Daily Caller says it's a gaffe by Rand. The New York Times. This is a good one. Try as he may. Let's give you the quote here. Try as he may, John McCain can't shake falsehoods about ties to ISIS. Rick Gladstone, September 11th. Sorry, Rick. These charges are borne out, and you have no proof. All you say is, we're going to take the word of the Free Syrian Army. And by the way, where are they? The Free Syrian Army now has 3 competing leaders. Half of them have defected to the crazies, to ISIS. This Idris was trotted out by the CIA as the golden boy of 2013, or even 2012. Where is Idris? Produce Idris. Let's hear from him. He was at that meeting. Idris is the one person widely known and I think acknowledged to have been at that meeting with McCain. Indict Idris. We need Idris as a material witness. He's supposedly in Doha. His deputy is supposedly in Sweden. Extradite them. We can even, bring them in by any means, right? You can extort them, import them, whatever it is. We want the truth. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, usually the Bible of the supporters of terrorism, they say there is a truce by certain groups of rebels with ISIS. So they're not fighting ISIS, they're only fighting Assad, and that helps ISIS through the back door. Robert Ford was supposed to be there at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee this week. After Kerry, they heard from Ford, right? We know him, the death squad expert who trained under the death squad king Negroponte. Even Robert Ford says that you can't underestimate the deal that Al-Qaeda is present there in the form of Nusra. Nusra, Al-Qaeda, the same thing, and they're not fighting ISIS. Let's get rid of these idiotic legends. So this is the picture. I urge you, use the social media that are now available. Get this out there. You can see this amazing lineup of the establishment media. Let me also point out there are holes in their story. Right? Elliot Engel of NBC News points out that the Free Syrian Army does not exist. Loretta Sanchez, and you can see all kinds of material on this on my Twitter account, that is to say Webster G. Tarpley on Twitter. What you will see there is Loretta Sanchez, Congresswoman from California, Democrat, saying that her friends in her district, her Syrian constituents, have told her that there is no such thing as a moderate Syrian terrorist or a moderate Syrian rebel. So that's the rundown on this. It's everywhere. The genie is out of the bottle. It cannot be contained. All you need to do is push this, because if you don't, what you're going to get is the McConnell program, and we've seen some of that. McConnell promised David Koch in that other tape, which we can never forget about, that if the Republicans can take over the Senate, which now becomes, I think, iffy because of sociological tendencies as well as this question that we're bringing up now, that there will be riders, there will be budget reconciliation, there will be no increase in the minimum wage, or did he say there'll be no minimum wage? I'm not sure. And there'll be no help for students crushed by student loan debt. Therefore, the policy of giving weapons, $500 million to the vetted moderate opposition, there's a fool's errand. And this, what we've just identified, is the war party in its current form. McCain, Lindsey Graham up front. Then we get this connection, O'Baggy, the Kagans, Institute for the Study of War, General Keane, Petraeus, General Allen, and that's the faction, Samantha, Rice, all these people. And Obama surrounded. If Dempsey has now collapsed, if Dempsey has diminished his resistance to lunatic war adventures, then that means that general war getting closer and closer. So the support, material support for terrorism is a crime according to existing law. And we also have to the attempt to use this to go on to bigger things, right? ISIS, the words we're told about them. It's a mighty force. One of the anchor ladies said this week, ISIS is a mighty force. And their sophistication. Next hour of World Crisis Radio. It's Friday the 19th of September. And remember, if you're in New York City on Sunday the 21st, go to 77th Street and Central Park West inside the park on Sunday morning between 8:30 a.m., 10 a.m., the gathering point for a peace march within the broader climate march. And there you're going to find Chris Reith and the sign, Arrest McCain for ISIS. But now changing gears, we always want to keep up with one of the principal fronts of resistance against fascism and fight for progressive and positive causes. And that's Reverend Edward Pinkney out in Benton Harbor, Michigan, key to the Michigan situation, which may indeed be the key to the U.S. Senate, among others. But Reverend, we know you're fighting for a mayoral election, right? You're trying to have the right to vote in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and to replace the Whirlpool Wall Street puppet mayor. And your candidate is Marcus Muhammad. So we're highly interested in your report. Please go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to thank everybody for sending their donation. We was able to file with the Supreme Court on that issue, which was really, really tremendous because they never thought that we would raise enough money to do so, and the fight continues. They had inside the newspaper, they was strictly continue to talk about me, putting my picture on in the newspaper, saying that I'm the one who actually out here doing things. But it's not just Reverend Pinkney. We have an organization. But even more important than that, soon as I just left New York, I was in New York for 4 days, got a chance to speak at New York City University, and also got a chance to meet Ramsey Clark, and which was such a tremendous thing because he also wants to help me join this fight and win this fight.
Excellent.
But as I got back late last night, my attorney had left a message that we are going to need for instance, a handwriting expert, and we're going to need to raise some money for it. Unfortunately, like he told me, this is bigger than life because we're only 40 days away from the trial, October the 27th. It's 40 days away. October the 27th is here, and it's coming upon us very, very fast. And we continue to fight in the streets. We're not giving up, like I told everybody, even if some coincidence that they find me guilty, I'm making you continue this fight because we got to fight for all mankind. It's not just Benton Harbor. This is coming to your city next, and that's what people don't understand. Like Detroit, for instance, they did not believe that they was going to have an emergency manager. They were saying we're too big to have an emergency manager. They would never do this to us. And then they had the water issue. When we had the water issue, they were saying it'll never happen to us. And right after that, Detroit has the same problem today, and it's worse now than ever before because now they're cutting people water off once again, Webster.
Reverend, the handwriting expert means a fee, and we have to urge people to help you and your organization, and that's Benton Harbor Banco, BANCO. It's an organization. If you have the help of Ramsey Clark, that's excellent. That already gives you a certain amount of publicity, credibility. I think a lot of people, including in Europe, understand Ramsey Clark is on board. Then this is quite serious. So how can people help? How can they send you money above all?
They can go to bhbanco.org. And that's my website. And you can read up on some of the things that we've been doing here, and you can send money there. That's bhbanco.org. Or you can mail me a check to Banco, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. And Webster, here's the thing that I'm loving about this. We're winning this battle. We are actually winning this battle. It may not seem like it to the people, but we are winning because never before in the history have this ever happened where they went out and hired not one law firm, not two law firms, but then they had a third law firm to try to went out and hire. So we're doing things that never been done before and making them spend money that we know they got, but we don't have, but we still fighting.
So 3 law firms oppose you. Well, many enemies, lots of honor. And tell us again now the timetable, the events as we go forward. Your court date is October 27th. Is there still time to change the ballot and get Marcus Muhammad on there?
Well, it all depends on what the judge say. They could change it a week before and have him put on there. But I just don't believe this corporate, this is a perfect example where government and these corporations have merged against the people. Because never before have I ever witnessed a government and a corporation working together this hard against the people, trying to keep them down, especially a small community like Benton Harbor. They're trying to tell us who should be our mayor. And that's why they do not want to have an election. If they can keep from having an election when his time expired, they are going to do it. Trust me. And it's going to be this way. If they have to use the emergency manager law or whatever they can, they are in the process now of showing the people that we are in control. The government and the corporation have merged in the city of Benton Harbor, and they're trying to destroy the people.
Reverend, so you're going to the Michigan State Supreme Court, and I guess that's in Lansing, and that's on October 27th?
Yes, it is. It's in Lansing, Michigan.
Okay.
So we're already there.
If you're an investigative journalist or you want to see some, way to get a real insight into what's actually going on in the United States, that's a good place to show up.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we're there, and we're fighting, and we're not giving up. We're not quitters, and even The newspaper keeps saying, how do we continue to battle these corporations, that corporation whirlpool, the way we do with no money? So we're doing Webster, and thanks to you, I want to thank you for even having me on your show, so I can tell the people exactly what's going on. And I appreciate everybody who have sent a donation in, and it's just been tremendous. But now I got to get that handwriting expert, because I don't want them to come up with a handwriting expert and he say, yeah, that's Pinkney. Unfortunately, that's not the truth.
All right, so what you've got is courage and principle and morality on your side, and they've got 3 law firms and an ocean of money. So I urge people, get involved in this. A handwriting expert, I mean, that's several $1,000s, right? I don't know how many.
Absolutely. It starts at $2,500.
$2,500. All right, that's about right. So people have got to help you to do that. And,
absolutely. That'll give me a chance to live the fight another day.
Okay. Anything else happening in the meantime people should know about?
Other than that, just up in Detroit, things like that. The city is moving on. They took a couple of more acres of our beach. Like I used the word took, they just took it because we didn't give it to them. We didn't sell it to them. And they took a couple of more acres of the beach, and it's just so many things that's happening that we don't really know where to start with everything that's happening. But we're fighting them, and we're saying that we're not going to give you those 2 acres that you want. That's what we're saying. We're saying that we have to sleep on those and have to go to jail. We will do so to keep them from taking and building on those 2 acres.
Reverend, we're looking forward to have you back next week. Yours is one of the most important struggle situations in the United States, so we want to be a part of it at every turn. So see you next week, and we'll be back in a minute here on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Here we are with our next segment. Now, we're going to go to Nebraska and hear from Dan Buhrdorf. Here's the situation in Nebraska in a nutshell. It's Dan Buhrdorf fighting to get to be heard. He's a write-in candidate, most likely, considering it anyway. And the situation in Nebraska is this is a state which is normally not interested in foreign wars, not interested in interventions and cowboy lunatic stuff. So here we've got a warmonger Republican, Ben Sasse, who wants to decimate the opposition internationally, and of course that includes Russia. So that's World War III right there. And then we've got a so-called Democrat who his name is Domina, and he is actually supporting Obama's crazy plan to locate some moderate terrorists in Syria and then train them and arm them. So the huge middle ground of Nebraska, which is anti-war and anti-adventurism, is left with nobody except, fortunately, Dan Buhrdorf. Welcome, Dan.
On your show, I really appreciate it. Of course, I really appreciate being here. The what you referenced there is Ben Sasse's campaign website, where he says that we have to decimate our enemies, quote unquote. That's on his website. You can see my response to that on my website at danfornebraska.com in the news section. One of the more recent news articles that I posted up there was my statement on Ben Sasse's war proclivities or attraction to war. And despite what he might say in the debate, he's been running on having a strong war footing since the primaries, since he's been running in June of last year. So I would really welcome contrast between my position and Mr. Sasse's position. So our campaign, as it stands right now, we've enjoyed some successes this election cycle. We've had national wire coverage. We've had TV coverage across the state. We've had regional reports on the radio, very big radio station reporting on us. And we've had featured articles in the local paper. And most importantly, we participated in the big state fair debate. Now, that's the biggest debate every election cycle, is the one at the state fair. And we were able to debate there, compete there, and we did very well. I would say, take it from me, I won that debate.
You won the debate. I'm an impartial observer, and you won the debate.
Thank you very much.
You were the only one. You had an economic program, and you had a foreign policy orientation, and the others had none of that.
That's right, and I also made an appeal to peace in that debate. But unfortunately, we didn't make the ballot. We fell short by a couple hundred signatures, and a write-in campaign takes a lot of resources. It takes a tremendous amount of resources, and it's also, along with the resources it takes on that end, it also is an uphill battle all the way. And so if people are encouraged by my program, please go to danfornebraska.com to support us. But as far as the international situation goes, there's been a lot of attention to that this week, Webster. And it kind of reminds me of the Halloween decorations that are already coming out across Nebraska. Every year it's earlier and earlier. And in the Middle East, we have ISIS masquerading as vetted moderates, which I think that's going to be a tremendous costume party for our country to participate in. And I am strongly opposed to that. And my opponents aren't, as you pointed out in that kind introduction. Mr. Sass, if he's elected, he will be serving in the same caucus as Senator McCain. And I want to ask Mr. Sass, will he condemn Mr. McCain's war psychosis? Because this is obviously a danger to our citizens and our nation, and I hope Mr. Sass can see that. I'm not holding my breath, but if Mr. Sass is elected, I would hope that he puts an end to that type of war psychosis and the crazy threats that are coming from Lindsey Graham that ISIS will come into America and kill us all. I think that is, if I'm not mistaken, that is what Mr. Graham had to say last week on the Sunday morning shows.
Right. Dan,
and then, of course,
I devoted the entire first hour to this McCain hobnobbing with ISIS. This is now everywhere, all over the press.
Exactly.
Newspapers, blogs.
Well, I think this is a very big danger for my state and for the country. And Mr. Domina, unfortunately, is touting President Obama's plan as a very, very good plan, but it's not. It's the wrong policy. Sure, everything might be good for that as far as Mr. Domina is concerned, but he misses the most important part is that it's failed policy. It's a bad policy. And so I wonder if Mr. Domina will support terrorists in Syria if he's elected. I hope not. So you can contrast this plan with, again, I have a peace statement up on my website, danfornebraska.com. And I suggest if Mr. Domina wants to mimic people and follow people, like he has my economic plan, if he wants to follow people on the foreign policy, instead of following President Obama, why doesn't he look at his own Democratic Party Representative Gabbard or Senator Manchin? Representative Gabbard said that she questioned if fighting in Syria would be fighting the wrong people. And Senator Manchin said that this plan is insanity. So I think there's some other options for a Democratic candidate who wants to follow the leader. But the Democrats, I think, have to stand up, because if you look at the GOP pledge from Mitch McConnell, I think we mentioned this before in the last few weeks, he has an austerity cuts. He's promised austerity cuts. When he promised the Koch brothers in a meeting that's available online. You can find it at my Twitter page. I've linked to it. My Twitter is at Dan for Nebraska. Mitch McConnell promised austerity cuts to the social safety net, including care for the aged. He's promised no to any kind of minimum wage hike, and he's guaranteed. He made a guarantee for no student loan help. And if you contrast with my plan, I have a plan to strengthen and secure the social safety net. I've got a plan to get good jobs going. We ask where are all the jobs that you can start a family on? And if the minimum wage is supposed to be a starter job, where are the jobs that we're going to graduate to? If you look at the Pizza Hut down the street from where I live, everybody who works there is either has a college degree, is 35, or both, and there's no good jobs to graduate.
Sorry,
to.
The music is telling us we're out of time, and of course the question is where is the Democratic Party on this McConnell tape? They're nowhere. You're carrying the ball. DanForNebraska.com, and we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley in Washington, D.C. And now, as we continue with our array of election and struggle situations around the United States and indeed the world, let's go to Napa, California, the heart of the earthquake zone from a couple of weeks ago. And this is now the 5th congressional district of California. And as people know, we're highly interested in the candidacy of James Hinton, who is on the ballot, right? He has successfully qualified under the California primary, and he's taking on Mike Thompson, the number 2 Democrat on the House Select Intelligence Committee, and that covers a multitude of sins, and one of the closest allies of Nancy Pelosi. So, James, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Webster.
Great. We want you every week, all the way to November. So what would you say the big issue now? War and peace, austerity, depression?
Jobs
Take it away.
and peace. That's what we want. We want jobs and peace. Jobs are good. War is bad. Tax Wall Street.
Good. All right. So
I want to update you. Let me update some of your listeners on how it works out here. So we had our primary back in June, and there was 3 of us, and I came out the winner. So right now, it's just me, an independent, no party affiliation, running against Mike Thompson, Democrat. 8 terms, seeking his 9th. He's got $1.6 million cash on hand already. He is a Wall Street darling, and that's the tape. That's the situation.
Okay, and I guess the this past week has shown that the organizations that are supposed to be impartial and provide a forum for educating the voters and airing the issues, like the League of Women Voters, they have not fulfilled their function, and indeed the local newspaper also not exactly even-handed.
Well, the League of Women Voters did call me this week, and they were very unhappy with the recent plethora of emails and phone calls they've been receiving about their not inviting me to any of their campaigns. So some of your listeners have really made a difference, and you definitely got their attention. They were very upset about it. But they agree, though, that they like me as a candidate, and they want to get me on the out there. So let's see what they can do.
James, how can they be surprised if there's a congressional election and they're the League of Women Voters and they're willing to organize candidate forums for everything from dog catcher to county council, and I'm sure they do a lot about the governor election too, but they won't give a soapbox to somebody like you who's challenging this entrenched incumbent, Mike Thompson, again, Pelosi man, and then they're surprised that people are indignant?
No, actually, they didn't give a soapbox to our governor's race. The reason why it's Jerry Brown versus Kashkari is there was no forums, there was no coverage of our governor race. We had 10 or 15 candidates, and they got treated much like our congressional race here. Very silenced by the media and very silenced by anybody who would sponsor a forum. So they roll out the red carpet if you're running for college board of trustee, city council, and some of these other smaller positions in our government. But the big ones, they got them locked up.
Okay. Now, tell us about your campaign. Where will you be going, and what will you be doing now in the next couple of weeks? And how can people link up?
Okay, I'll be Saturday at the Vallejo Farmers Market on Georgia Street. That market runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then over in Benicia, also on Saturday from 10 to 4, there's the Arts and Crafts Show where they're going to close off First Street. So it's downtown on First Street. We'll be down there handing out flyers as well all day Saturday. Coming up on Thursday, we do have the Calistoga City Council candidates. Okay? That meets at 5 o'clock on September 25th out at the Rancho de Calistoga. So that's a great place to come and show some support if you're on that side, if you're over in Santa Rosa or up Valley. That's out there by, you're nearby there. And the Vallejo and the Benicia events, that's good if you're out in the East Bay. Those are nearby. But we've been getting a lot of support from your show. I've got several volunteers this weekend going to help me out from around the Bay Area at these events, passing out flyers and spreading the word a little bit. If anybody else wants to help out, we could use some money to print some more flyers. Like I said, we've got a lot of volunteers now, and we're going through flyers. They're very cheap and inexpensive. All of them say tax Wall Street, nationalize the Federal Reserve, so every one of them is going to a good cause. You go to hintonforcongress.com, help us out with some donations to get some more flyers printed. That's very much appreciated. And I'm thinking about taking it to the next step. You've got so much great support. If you have free cell phone minutes, right, long-distance cell phone, what if you start making phone calls into my district from your house? You know, you get weekend, you get free minutes. Let's start doing phone calls. You know, we can give everybody who wants to volunteer doing that. We can get you started on a different city, you know. I'm sure with the Internet at our fingertips, we could do a lot of communications, grassroots like this, and keep this going. You know, a lot of your listeners, they know the program already. It's a beautiful program. A lot of people aren't familiar with some of the language, but, you know, some good old-fashioned calling, we can still pull off the biggest upset, right? We only got one guy to beat. It's still a coin flip. No one's cast a vote yet. Still got 45 days to go. This is a chance for change. Getting rid of both parties out of our government. Having no Wall Street influence in our district, right? Let's get a new voice, one that represents the people for a change instead of the corporations. So please help me out. Come to my website, hintonforcongress.com. Get on your Facebook. Start liking my page and sharing it. We'll put out updates every day. We need people to share it. Let's get this. Anything we can do for free to get our voice back in Washington, let's use this opportunity in the next 45 days to do it. All right? You've got a great program. You there, Webster?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I heard a little beeping. But
don't worry.
This is a great program. We need it. Our people are listening now. Like I said, it's not being drowned out because we're a third or fourth or fifth option that doesn't have a shot. No, this is the option. It's one-on-one match, right? Me and Wall Street, one-on-one. 1.6 million versus $400, okay? But it's okay because it's not about the money. Okay, they're not on November 5th. They're not going to count his 1.6 million. They're only going to count our votes, right? And we can still make those votes count right now. We've got a lot of time to wake people up to the opportunity for change. The only problem with our program is most people don't know it exists. And most people don't know that it's a 50-50 shot, all right? It's not a 1 in 6 chance where you're polling at 2 or 3%, okay? We've already got a big vote in the primary. We had 12,000 votes cast, 11% of the votes, okay? And that's a big start, you know? So let's get this message going and do whatever we can down the stretch to win this. I appreciate all your help.
And,
I've got
James,
a beautiful website. Thanks to Daniela Walls and Kyle for helping me out. The website is gorgeous. Thank you for all of your hard work. I appreciate it all. I never imagined I'd have such a beautiful website like this representing me, but I love it. It's gorgeous.
James, the music telling us that our time is up. And remember, if it were money, it would be Eric Cantor, Speaker of the House, and President Phil Gramm. And if you hear this on Saturday, because of the time zones, you can go to Vallejo. If you're going to get to Vallejo by 9 to 2, you can still go there. So we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is now our last segment, and I had to devote the entire first hour to this question of McCain and ISIS. And our slogan there, of course, is hashtag arrest McCain for ISIS, the number 4. We wanted to have an extended discussion of the Scottish referendum. It's a great victory, very good for the world that this lunatic leap into the dark was defeated. We'll be back next week with more on that. And remember my program, the Bank of England should issue $3 trillion of 0% long-term credit, quite possibly buying century bonds. Britain needs about 5 million new jobs. Don't listen to these cretins who want to have more parliamentary cretinism, more process reforms. Forget that. Forget the English Parliament, the Welsh Parliament, the Scottish, and the Ulster. Forget all this. This is not going to make the difference. It's 5 million new productive jobs. And we're now going to go to a race in Cambridge, Massachusetts, 7th District of Massachusetts, and that's Jason Lowenthal, who's up there. And let me just mention, Jason, you're going to be in New York, I know. We're going to have our Tax Wall Street Party, United Front Against Austerity, is going to gather on Sunday morning at 77th Street and Central Park West with the anti-war, pro-peace contingents, and that's going to be between 8:30 and 10. Code Pink and other anti-war groups are going to be there. So if you get a chance, please stop by. But let's hear from Jason.
Hey, good afternoon, Webster. How was your week?
Okay, good.
Well, I guess where we left off last week was we had just found out that the Secretary of the Commonwealth in Massachusetts was going to be sending out the ballots, or had planned on sending out the ballots without our name. We immediately went on Monday to file a temporary restraining order against the Secretary of the Commonwealth in federal court in Boston. And now we're waiting to hear back as the federal court, reviews our appeal.
Okay. And do you know which judge it is that you're dealing with?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, we obviously hope for the best there, huh? Because if you wait until 2 days before the election, they're then going to turn around and say, sorry, too late to put your name on the ballots.
Absolutely, yes. It should be any time now. But yes, as you said earlier, we're in I already made it to New York. We're here in preparation for Sunday's climate march. It should be an exciting time. She said we're meeting at 77th and Central Park West.
Yeah, that's the anti-war, specifically the anti-war contingents are also going to be there. So we're going to have Chris Reith there with a poster saying "Arrest McCain for ISIS" with a hashtag in front, because that's the immediate focus of trying to stop this war. Now remember, whatever your ideas for domestic reform, the one thing we know from Vietnam and many other examples, as soon as there's a war, all of your domestic reform goes out the window. So you might as well not even bother unless you stop that war.
I had the chance to hear Bill McKibben speak a couple weeks back in Cambridge over at Lesley University, and he was talking about the urgency, the immediate need for us to change what we value, what the currency is in our culture, to change it from paper and even gold, for that matter, to passion, spirit, and creativity. That we have to cultivate movements and derive value from those. And I think that, in gathering so many groups, the peace groups, the climate groups, the political groups, I know that the Green Party from Boston is sending down a bunch of activists. Hopefully we'll have enough together to foster to force immediate change.
Yes, and of course, we know what the two foci are, right? We've got the Ukrainian front, unfortunately, and then we've got this hysteria here in the U.S. about arming and training moderate terrorist rebels in Syria. These people are just about impossible to find. And the idea that this clique behind McCain is trying to use the idea of bombing ISIS as a way to get what they really wanted the whole time, which was bomb Syria. So this extraordinarily dangerous, and our big concern is that get a full hearing, because again, if you don't tackle that one, the changes in values and other long-term things become impossible. And also the idea that, of course, from the point of view of the average person, it is scarcity, right? It's poverty, ignorance, lack of medical care, lack of clean water in the world. 50,000 people who starve to death every day from lack of obvious, necessities of life. So it's a great chance, right? And the UN General Assembly needs to hear this stuff, right? Because they're sort of in their bubble there at Kips Bay.
There are going to be events across the country, and it is very important that we all, as many of us, come out as possible, especially when we consider that global warming is going to have a disproportionate effect on so many that have no chance to come to New York and other in Boston and Southern California to view their concerns. They're affected the most. So we have a chance to come and march on the United Nations, and we must take it. If you're nearby, please stop by. Please, we'll see you Sunday morning.
Sure thing. Now, do you have any other options in terms of this case in the federal court there in Boston? Do you know when you're going to get a response?
No, I spoke with a clerk on Wednesday, and they said that it was under review, and we sort of adopted General Washington's original standard in the Revolutionary War, appeal to heaven. And I guess that's our next approach.
So I guess you're going to call them every day. I just hope that when you get the news, let us know, right? Put out some tweets or send us something on the listserv. I believe you're on listserv, right? I hope you are.
Absolutely.
Anyway, you can send it to me through Tarpley. If you look at tarpley.net, there's a kind of a speakers bureau, and there's a contact feature in there, so you can just send me whatever happens. I'd love to be the first to know. I can put it out on Twitter and in other ways. So again, we were just talking with Reverend Pinkney in Michigan, right? He's trying to have an election. Dan Buhrdorf in Nebraska is trying to be heard, even though he didn't get the signatures to be on the ballot. Do you have the option of a write-in campaign or anything like this?
That option is there for anybody. I just don't know if that would be the best use of our resources. So,
well, it can be done very, very cheaply. In other words, the main thing is it gives you a chance to be heard for a period of 4 to 5 weeks. And the advantage of an election campaign is this is the one time when the average person is more or less willing to entertain political ideas, right? Which often they dismiss because they think they're irrelevant.
Well, it's not a thought I've entertained quite yet because I still have the hope of, justice in the end. Sure. But I can promise you'll be the second to know. My mother has a vested stake in this as well.
And remember, you can also, it's not completely excluded, right, given the fact that you have the ability to draw up these papers, right? You can go right to the First Circuit, right, probably across Boston Common or something like this, right? You go right to the First Circuit and say, that can't really be your last word, right? You have a statutory right to appeal.
The Massachusetts general law lays out a very clear course of, what should be done to signatures once they're dropped off for them to be certified. The very fact that the signature.
I'm sorry, yeah. How many minutes do we have left? Okay. You want me to just maybe, if you can call them back and tell them we're sorry we ran out of time, but let me just say the last couple of words. So unfortunately, we just lost Jason. It's Jason Lowenthal in New York City, but running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District, Cambridge, Massachusetts. We want to report on his situation, and otherwise we wish everybody a good week. And remember, if you're in New York City, and you want to get on the anti-war scoreboard, then it's 77th Street and Central Park West between 8:30 and 10 on Sunday morning. We'll see you then, and we'll see you next week then on World Crisis Radio.